Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri.
And Amy Cornell.
So this is a really interesting episode. There is a whole bunch of conversation going on out there about Amazon's AI. And if you've been on Amazon at all in the last 6 months, you probably met Rufus. And Rufus is their new AI tool. I have a very love-hate relationship with Rufus. We're going to go into that a little bit. We have, as any of you listeners know, who've listened to us for a long time, we have many strong feelings about a lot of things. So we're going to break that down for you in this episode. First, I want to mention, again, my book, Think Local, Sell Global, is up is actually off of pre-order, so it's up for sale. Grab a copy. I'm really excited. It's doing really well. I'm so thrilled that this book is finally out. So if you've read it, let me know what you think. We really love to get your feedback. And speaking of feedback, if you're not part of our texting group, text the word podcast to 888-402-8940. Let me know what you think of the book. Let us know what you think of the book. Send us your show ideas, questions, all the things. You can communicate with us directly. Just text the word podcast to 888-402-8940. Okay. Let's break this down. Amy, I'm going to put Amy on the spot here real quickly. Amy, when I came to you with this idea, the first thing you thought or said was what?
Well, okay. So honestly, I'm going to pull out an 80s term. I kind of thought like, well, duh, which makes me sound wildly intelligent, I realize. But it's also important. I think that's why, and we had a great chat around it because we really dug into what this means, how it changes things. And it was also really satisfying on a more personal level too, because a lot of what we're going to be talking about are things that Penny and I like to talk about a lot already, Yeah. So I always love when we make, recommendations and somewhat industry predictions and things like that, and they come true.
I know. I love that. It makes us feel very, on the pulse.
Yes.
Of all the things. So the origin story of this particular episode is that Amy and I started to see a lot of conversation about Amazon's AI and changing how readers find books. And the core idea is that as much as we like to turn to AI for solutions and all the things and recipes and whatever, or fun little things that you do with Chat GPT on your phone, right? The better AI needs a lot of information, right? AI isn't just like if you put something in there that's very general, that's basically all that you're going to get back. So the idea really is that AI has forced us into, some really serious specificity when it comes to presenting your book on Amazon. And it is something, Amy, that you and I have been saying for a long time, but I think that the conversation around Amazon's AI, specifically Rufus, which I find it's so annoying, but whatever, Amazon didn't consult with me on whether or not this was a good idea, but has really forced authors to take a second look at how their book is being presented on the retail page and whether the information in the book description is specific enough to not only appeal to readers, but to appeal to Rufus, the AI that's, internal in Amazon now, right?
Yes. And that's what, again, we've chatted about this a lot in different ways across many different shows, but we've always talked about being specific and understanding who your actual readers and buyers are and making sure that they really understand what makes your book stand out, why it fits their needs, why it answers their questions, why it matches what they look for in a fiction read. We've talked about that a lot. And now it has become like a real legit thing beyond just Penny and Amy think it's a great idea because it's going to convert more shoppers and buyers.
Right.
But Amazon also agrees. They think it's better for shoppers if you include more detailed information that can give people a better shopping experience. And honestly, it helps them make a more confident yes and more confident purchase. And Amazon's here to sell things. So if somebody can be more confident in making a purchase more quickly, that's what they want to do. And so aligning your book's retail page with that goal is only going to help you at this point.
Well, and it's not so much about giving up on keywords, because keyword or keyword strings, as we like to talk about, those are still important. But it's really understanding that because of the AI element in Amazon, reader behavior has become more conversational, right? So instead of searching, for example, historical fiction women frontier novel, a reader is more likely to ask, what's a good historical novel about a resilient woman starting over in the American West? And what that does is it changes the dynamic of how your book is searched, meaning that if that is not part of your book description, you're probably not going to get found. And by that, I mean the detail of the resilient woman and starting over and that level of depth. Amy, you used a word that I really love when we were in the green room and we were kind of discussing this episode. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, well, hopefully this is the one. But yes, I said that I view it as creating a really immersive experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
so
exactly.
Setting up a retail page. And that's everything from your description to all the content you can add via Author Central. Like you are quite literally creating an immersive experience from top to bottom as somebody scrolls through that page. And your ability to keep them interested is the bar. You have to keep them interested. And if you're doing that, you're likely also doing well in AI searches. Because I agree with you, Penny. A standard search on Amazon may be a little more, choppy and direct, but people use AI like they're having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's very different. They treat AI very differently. It's the give and take. It's the immediate response. It's, and AI is designed to keep that conversation going as well. So it naturally leans toward that. But so you really have to, you have to be able to do both. So typically, if you're probably doing well in AI, you're probably doing pretty well on the standard Amazon search still. But it's that meeting those demands for the AI search results really is next level. It's next level branding, targeting, positioning, messaging. And I find it fascinating and super fun, but I realize it can be overwhelming as an author, especially if you're doing all your own content yourself,
Yeah, it can. And, and a lot of times I know that authors will turn to, let's say, ChatGPT or Claude to write a book, write this book description for me. And the AI can only write a description, a really, really solid description with the right input. Like, it's not necessarily going to, infuse your book description with elements that it doesn't know. You know what I mean? If you don't put it in, you're not going to get it out. So,
right. Yes, AI will lean generic. It'll lean buzzwords. It'll lean kind of fluffy marketing language because surface level, superficially, that all sounds really great. And it's like, if you're just scanning, you're like, oh, that's pretty. I like that. And, that's fine. But that's not what we're talking about. Fine is not good enough anymore. You really have to push it. And that's why, again, this is something that we have definitely talked about over the years. That's why really understanding who your readers are, who your shoppers are, and what they're looking for, what makes them tick. This is where you really tap into that.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get into the third segment, what are some of the things, Amy, that you feel, I know we've kind of hit on some of them already, but where authors really go wrong with this? Or anything that we haven't covered?
Yeah, I think I'm surprised at how much I still see this, because it seems like a very old tactic, but I still see a lot of keyword stuffing.
Yeah.
It sounds unnatural. you know, to the extent that the author was so focused on hitting these keywords that, you know, and we say it all the time too, that it's almost like they forgot to read their book description out loud. You know, like, would you describe a book like this to somebody you were chatting with? No way in hell, right? And if that's the case, then it's probably not good enough for your description on Amazon, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, the keyword stuffing is definitely challenging because there are smart ways to use keywords, and then there are very obvious, blatant ways to use keywords that absolutely, I guarantee you 100% are turning shoppers off. As soon as they feel like they're being sold, you know, instead of catered to, they're gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And then I think, do you want to take the back cover one? Because I feel very strongly about this because
no, go for it. Go for it.
I work with clients on back cover copy a lot. And, you know, back cover copy, it's challenging. But when you write your book description like the back cover can be very atmospheric and pretty. And it can be a little bit vague because you only have so much space. In the back cover, I always think it's more like, you know, a lead into a cinematic event. You know what I mean? And that's what's beautiful about back cover copy, especially for fiction. Obviously for nonfiction, you know, a lot of bullet points, a lot of, you know, get down to what they're going to get in there. But you can't do a book description that is overly vague and atmospheric, because that's, again, where you're going to start losing the ability to describe the specific aspects of your book that makes it different, that makes it unique, that makes it specific to what your readers are looking for, the experience they're trying to have. So those serve two very different purposes. I mean, I think a lot of what people are using as their description now, Penny, probably could make solid back cover copy, but it's not going to work in terms of what you use for a description and how that plays into getting on search results, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that totally. So I think that you have to lead. It's in order for your book, and we're going to give you guys some examples too, but in order to make your book description, not only obviously you want to appeal to the reader, but you also have to appeal strongly to Amazon's search engine, which we've talked about a lot. You have to lead with confidence. You have to lead with the specifics about, like the example that I gave earlier, who this book is for, right? The keywords still matter. The keyword stuffing, what Amy said, is very, very true. And I see this so much in subtitles.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Right? Where I see readers, you know, or authors putting in subtitles that just feel very, you know, it feels very disingenuous, frankly. I don't know if that's probably really not the right word.
No, but I know what you mean. It is. It feels very salesy. And as much as people realize that people are selling to them because they're shopping, they don't want to be sold like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. So I think that, you know, rewrite the first sentence of your Amazon description. Lead with the genre, protagonist, setting, conflict, and emotional promise. For example, for readers of emotionally rich historical fiction, this novel follows a widowed mother rebuilding her life in post-war America while uncovering a family secret that could change everything. So with that, to me, I think that's a rock star start. Like, I would absolutely, as a reader, pick up this book because it sounds super compelling. What that also does is it will feed into how readers are now searching on Amazon for books that are very, you know, readers are way more specific than I think. And we actually have another show that we're going to do. And I think I'm a little confused on the scheduling, but I think it's coming up for next week. Readers are way more specific than I think a lot of times we give them credit for, right? I mean, they're super specific. I'm very risk averse when I decide to get a book on Amazon. So I think that also, aside from the AI conversation, that also has to be taken into account.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, for nonfiction, and it's interesting because when I was writing the book description for Think Local, Sell Global, I kind of went through this as I was writing this, because the one thing that I know is that authors are really, they've had it, and obviously we're not on video, but they've had it up to here. hand above the head with marketing advice, do all the things. And so my book description had to reflect that, because that is how readers are going to search looking for this topic. If you're an author tired of marketing advice that goes nowhere, this practical guide shows you how to build visibility using Amazon discoverability, local promotion, and reader first positioning. Right. Now that's a mouthful, right? This is not what I used for my book description, because it's not an Amazon focused book. It's a local marketing book, but you get the idea. Now, Amy, what do you think about, I really actually love this idea, and I've seen this around as well, adding "this book is for you if" section. I actually love that idea, adding it to maybe even to the bottom of the book description, towards the end of the book description. What do you think about that?
Yes, we've definitely been doing a lot more of this lately with our clients as well, because absolutely, it goes back to people want a sure thing. And this shows a level of confidence, I think, too, right, Penny? Like, so if you can confidently compare your book to very specific tropes, themes, tones, authors, even book titles, because that's allowed in descriptions, and then same thing for nonfiction, audience type, pain points, skill level. That's one I think that's glossed over a lot. Outcomes, obviously, things like that. I think that's definitely a confidence indicator. Like, if you're going to say you do this, then you better deliver. But it's also, when it comes to getting the attention of AI, that confidence level of saying this book is for you if, like, there's no question about where your book lands, right? If you put that in there.
Yeah, and exactly.
Yep.
But I think that is really, because when I talk to a nonfiction author specifically, because this leans heavily into nonfiction, the first thing that I ask them is, how is your book different from the 90 other books that were launched just in the last hour on the same topic on Amazon? And I don't say that to be rude or to be depressing, but at the end of the day, that is the thing that your description on Amazon has to answer that question. And this book is for you, adding in "this book is for you if" section is really brilliant. I really like that. The other thing, and I know I touched on this just a few minutes ago, but the subtitle, man, I can't tell you, subtitle, no more don't stop the keyword stuffing. It looks really inauthentic on your retail page, but it's also really terrible for search, because again, the readers are searching using a more conversational tone as opposed to a self-help book for positive thinking. Like, that is not really a search that's happening anymore in Amazon, as an example.
No, and there'd be a ton of books that would show up for it. So that's not super helpful to the shopper either. They're going to get a billion choices at that point.
Right, exactly.
And I think the subtitle too, I think it's worth mentioning just for those listening, is that there's, subtitles can be talked about in a couple different ways. Obviously, a subtitle can go on your book cover, but some authors, depending on how you publish, you can actually choose the subtitle that shows up on your retail page also. Yeah. So think about both ways. Like, yes, so if you're in production still and you're coming up with your final subtitle, that is one aspect of this. But specifically, if you are in a position to be able to choose your subtitle when you're loading your book and having your book added, creating the retail page, that is a second very critical opportunity to do the right things versus the wrong things. Let's put it that way.
Right, exactly. And I think that keywords obviously fall into the same, like, if you haven't looked at your keywords in a while, just make sure that they include, your subgenre, maybe your setting, your character type, tropes. Readers lean heavily into tropes, theme, audience fit. All of those things matter to your keywords. And then for nonfiction, obviously, what problem are you solving specifically? So I think, the takeaway here really is, so we've preached this for a long time, but really, not that you had a choice before, but now you really don't have a choice, because all of Amazon is evolving to this kind of search, right? And the other piece of it, though, too, and this is where, I've seen authors that have really great book descriptions, but their bio is super lackluster. And we've done a lot of evaluations on that as well for their Author Central, right, Amy?
Yes. And I think that's also where, really digging into what Author Central offers, you realize how many different opportunities you have to do the right things and present your work to people from different angles. That's very helpful, again, to create that immersive experience, because you've got your main bio, and that remains consistent throughout all of your titles. That will follow you across titles. And so that you could be a little more rigid is not the right word, but you know what I mean? That's a bit more resume-like, depending on, what you write, what genre you write in. But then a lot of people don't realize that there's also an about the author section that you can customize per title. And that becomes a version of your bio that is very specific to that book's reader market. And that is an amazing sweet spot that so many people look over that you really shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that was really smart to mention that. I think that's a great idea, because we really have to. So the biggest takeaway of this, if you're listening to this and you're still trying to kind of get your mind wrapped around this concept, because I know it's a lot, we have essentially moved from, the discoverability question of can Amazon find your keyword or your keyword strings to can Amazon confidently understand who this book is for? And that's the biggest differentiating factor between maybe where you were a month ago and where you need to go. And this isn't about chasing AI tricks or anything like that. That's not what this is about at all. It's making sure that the Amazon system can really understand. And again, knowing that you're dealing with an AI that needs specificity over generality, can it really understand who this book is for? Right?
Right. I find it really ironic, Penny, that now we're using machines that are requiring us to create a more immersive human shopping experience. I find it ironic, and I find it interesting, but I love it because, like we talked about at the top of the show, you and I have been talking about moving authors in this direction for a long time, because it really does benefit who you're trying to reach and speak to and convert. And now Amazon agrees with us.
Yeah, exactly. And now, now we have, so when we first started, when I first started talking about Amazon optimization over 10 years ago, the only thing that we were focused on was the reader and the Amazon search system. And then as you and I have evolved this within the company, right, we've become even more entrenched in that. And now layered on top of that is Amazon's new AI system. Rufus, as he's called. They really need to start giving these things another name. I'm sure somebody named him after their dog. Fine, whatever.
I know that was the Amazon thing, right? Like all the dogs on the broken links and stuff like that.
I know, that's the best part of the 404 pages on Amazon are all the dogs.
We need some more bad pages because the dogs are adorable.
Right, exactly. So just to give you, should we do a couple of examples, like a bio and a fiction example,
Sure.
just before we let everybody go? Do you want to start with the fiction one first?
Sure. Okay. This is perfect. Okay. So before, a gripping story of secrets, betrayal, and one woman's journey to find the truth. So again, like if you're already, a mystery thriller fan, you're probably like, okay, like semi-interested. But again, This is very much what we talked about. The issue is that you can apply this to literally thousands of books.
Right.
Thousands. So that's where it's missing the mark. So the after would be for readers of domestic suspense and book club fiction. This title follows a suburban mother whose carefully ordered life begins to unravel when a buried family secret exposes the people closest to her. Whoa, right? You're already imagining the movie version, right? Are you not?
Oh, yeah. I'm totally imagining. I'm like, okay, well, this feels a little bit like The Housemaid. Like,
right?
Yeah.
But I think that, especially for fiction authors, I think that's a very fair, relatable way to maybe present this, to make this feel less scary and challenging, is that really, like, we went from something that could be used for a lot of different books to something where you're almost pitching your Netflix miniseries, right? Based on this alone. And people can visualize how that would play out. And I think that is the goal you're kind of reaching for at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, as you said, the first one, was okay, but you really could plug that into pretty much any book that you see on Amazon.
Right. Leading character is the female, and it's, somewhere in this dispense genre, it really works for so much. And that's the problem.
That is right. Exactly. That's the problem. Now, for bios, and again, y'all got to pay attention to your bio on Amazon. Fiction, this is going to be a nonfiction example, but fiction or nonfiction, you really want to be as specific because it all matters to the Amazon AI search engine system. Boy, that's a mouthful. So here's a before. John Davis is a speaker, consultant, and entrepreneur who has spent more than 20 years helping people succeed. He lives in Colorado with his wife and enjoys hiking, travel, and coffee. That is so boring. Like, sorry, John. I love hiking too, and I love travel and coffee. So we'd probably get along, except your bio is super boring. Instead, John writes practical leadership and workplace communication books for managers, founders, and team members who want to build stronger teams without corporate jargon. Drawing on more than 20 years as a consultant and speaker, his work helps readers improve communication, reduce conflict, and lead with more clarity. What the second piece doesn't include is any of John's personal details, because honestly, the audience that you are speaking to, if it's particular for nonfiction, doesn't really care. Like, sorry, you know what I mean? They don't really care about those personal details when they are deciding on a book.
Yeah, it's not the time and place. It's not adding to your credibility at this point,
Right.
And that's where we've talked about this before too, where we've mentioned like you got to let go of it being about you sometimes and really make sure that it's about the reader and who you want to buy your book,
Yeah. So the more specific that you can get both in your description and in your bio, the better that you will do in this whole new Amazon AI search system, which I realize feels a little bit scary, but really it's just redefining what we've already been talking about. So I hope that this episode, Amy, before we sign off, did we forget anything?
No, I think we covered quite a bit. And now everybody has a little analysis to do on their retail pages, which I hope you have fun with because I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know. It feels it's a little bit like a mystery. You know what I mean? Like it is really fun. We both love digging into this topic. We'd love to hear from you. So leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, but also text the word podcast to 888-402-8940. We'd love to know how you're doing with this information. And also, do you have a favorite podcast? We'd love to know what your favorite show is so far. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.